Life was hard on the plains of western Oklahoma after the First World War. It was under these conditions that Woodward's Assembly of God Church began. Gordon and Glenn Millard came to Woodward to preach the Pentecostal message in a revival. Their father had brought his family to this area and pioneered the Assembly of God Church at Moreland. Gordon stayed on after the revival as pastor and organized this church as an Assemblies of God in 1924. It began in a rented building at 8th and Maury Avenue. In 1926, a small wood-frame church with a dirt and straw floor was built. In 1928, Reverend Bynum Green became pastor and built this shingle-sided building in the middle of the 900 block of Webster. It was dedicated by the Reverend P.C. Nelson. In 1929, A.J. Wilcox became pastor, followed in 1931 by the Reverend Wiley Perkins. In 1933, Reverend Floyd Murray became pastor. His family was very musically talented. This is his congregation in front of that building. The men dug a hole beneath the building to use as a Sunday school classroom. In 1936, Reverend James E. Winstead became pastor. In 1939, Reverend Rufus S. Strange became pastor. The building was whitewashed, and this is a picture of his wife and son on the steps. This church was destroyed by a tornado in 1940. A new church was erected on the corner of 10th and Webster. It was a frame building with artificial brick siding. The church building was destroyed twice by tornadoes. The worst one, of course, in 1947. Louise Johnson, a member of the church at the time, has often told of her experience during the 1947 tornado. She relates it this way. We were in a revival with 17-year-old evangelist Don Brankle. We were made aware a storm was coming, and Brother Brankle asked everyone to come to the altar. The tornado took away the roof, the walls, and the platform, then tilted the floor until all the people at the altar were shoved into the hole where the platform had been. We were scratched and bruised, but alive. The church went on from there and was held in a tent until plans could be made to rebuild a new building. This picture was taken right after a Sunday morning service in that tent. Brother Williford and the church board decided it was best to build a church with a storm cellar, so they went underground. The congregation began to rebuild by building a concrete basement with extra thick steel reinforced walls. This area was built with classrooms around the outer walls and a sanctuary area in the center. In 1950, Reverend J.C. McCluskey became pastor. This brave man erected a rock church above ground over the existing basement. This new church was built with Arkansas limestone. This is a picture of the sanctuary of that church on Easter Sunday, 1953. Brother McCluskey and his board members are shown standing at the rear of the church. As the church grew, more room was needed. In 1964, under the direction of Pastor C.A. Nicholson, who served from 1954 until 1968, a new sanctuary and more office classroom space was needed. The old sanctuary was then used as a fellowship hall, with the basement being used for both classrooms and youth activities. The limestone and open brick front were then covered and enclosed to make the building have a more cohesive feel. By 1974, under the direction of Reverend William R. Eccles, the mortgage was paid off and a celebration day was held. These are a few shots of that day with Brother Eccles, youth pastor Pat Weber, and several board members of the time. March 12, 1978, another groundbreaking celebration was held to begin the building of a new educational wing. By 1987, the 10th and Webster location had been outgrown, and no more space was left for further expansion in that location. Under the leadership of Reverend J. Paul Sharp, who was pastor from 1983 to 2001, the church relocated from 922 Webster to 3906 Lakeview Drive. A new brick facility of 25,000 square feet on 22 acres with a sanctuary capable of seating 600 people was built. The congregation, still being both storm-weary and storm-wary, however, would only agree to move if the building involved a new basement. By 2000, the congregation thought it beneficial to build a building to house our growing bus ministry. Thanks to the leadership at that time and the handiwork of church member Bob Baird, buildings were created to house that important equipment. The next step was to create a storage building to protect lawn equipment, etc., and allow prudent use of money to keep from recreating props and decorations for every event every year. Thanks to God's blessing, this was also accomplished. In 2008, the latest addition was made to this ever-growing church. A youth building was built east of the main sanctuary. Additional acreage was purchased later to allow further expansion as God continues to bless our outreach to Woodward, Northwest Oklahoma, and to missions around the world. Praise God for all He has done, for all He continues to do, and for all He will continue to do in our midst.